Hi everyone, I'm here today with Natalie Fulton, and as some of you already know, we're working on a really awesome campaign here in Denver, Colorado with Pro Animal Future, which Natalie now officially works for.
So do the social media for that. Yeah.
And I thought it would be cool to go over this voter survey that I was sent by, I guess, the opposition.
Well, we didn't send it out, so it must have been them.
So we're just going to go through the survey and kind of correct some misinformation and propaganda that the framing that they're trying to put out. So yeah, let's just dive right in.
Hell yeah.
Cool. As you may know, there will be a ballot measure this year regarding slaughterhouses in Denver. Here's what will be on your ballot. Shall the voters of the City and County of Denver adopt an ordinance prohibiting slaughterhouses and, in connection, beginning January 1st, 2026, prohibiting the construction, maintenance, or use of slaughterhouses within the city, and requiring the city to prioritize residents whose employment is affected by the ordinance in workforce training or employment assistance programs. I like that they included that in the verbiage.
Smart.
Yeah, that was smart.
Yeah.
Moving on, in your opinion, how much of a problem is poor treatment of livestock by slaughterhouses? Would you say it's a very serious problem, a serious problem, somewhat of a problem, not really a problem, or completely unsure, no opinion whatsoever?
It's interesting that that's a question because I think their goal is to say that people don't care about how animals are treated in slaughterhouses, or say that they're just not concerned about it at all, which may be true for a significant proportion of the population.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting because that's kind of what we're doing when we're canvassing, like gauging public opinion.
Yeah.
Is like asking people on a scale of 0 to 10, like where would you place yourself, with 0 being you see nothing wrong with how we treat animals in our society, and 10 being it's terrible and we need to shift away from using animals entirely. So yeah, it's a similar question, but yeah, you can tell, well, maybe it's too early to tell who sent out this poll, but
I think I know who sent it out.
Yeah.
I think they're called Aspect, and they have been hired by Superior Farms for $147,000 as of right now. And they have worked on many ballot measures in Colorado, and they have an 80% win rate. So we should definitely be afraid of them.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe someone else sent that out. I'm not 100% sure. That's just the theory. Because you can actually see how much money that Superior Farms has gotten from other people, and then you can also see money they spend. They've raised almost $500,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, here's where it gets juicy. So next, here's some reasons why others oppose banning a slaughterhouse in Denver. Please indicate if you find each one to be very convincing, somewhat convincing, or not convincing reason to oppose banning slaughterhouses in Denver. Banning slaughterhouses is a slippery slope. If we vote to ban one business some people don't like, what's to stop bans on other types of businesses like butcheries and meat markets? If some people choose to stop eating meat, that is their choice. But we shouldn't start a trend of banning businesses just because some people don't like them.
Yeah, why don't we just keep slavery and child labor, you know? I mean, some people don't like it, but why should that matter?
Yeah. I also think the slippery slope argument is funny because, I mean, we do make it clear on our website that is the goal.
Yeah. Not like to close these businesses specifically, but to move society away from using animals.
Right.
As
they're like,
resources.
oh no, they're going to ban butcheries next.
Yeah.
It's like...
The thing that bothers me about this is the framing of it in terms of personal choice, and the meat industry really wants us to push that personal choice agenda, as vegans have been doing for a long time, because it's just not really effective. Because when it comes to dietary behavior, people are very resistant to any sort of thing where they feel as if they're being told what to do.
Yeah.
But the issue with that is that the reasons people eat animal products are not out of personal choice. The government is heavily involved in our food choices. They subsidize animal agriculture. Animal products would cost about twice as much as they do currently. Price is a huge factor in consumer buying decisions. So if we didn't have these subsidies, the demand for meat would not be nearly as high. It's inflated because of this governmental control. So at the end of the day, it's not personal choice at all. It's a fake personal choice.
Yeah, true. And yeah, of course they want to frame it as a personal choice because that framing makes people think of it as
like people shouldn't get involved in my business.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a libertarian, like, don't tell me what to do. Like,
yeah. And
that
the
kind of
other
thing.
thing is that I think this whole survey probably will ignore the choice of the animals as if it shouldn't even be a factor at all, when in reality it should be an enormous factor because they're the ones who have to suffer and die for these unnecessary products anyway.
If you're wondering why Denver is being asked to ban slaughterhouses, just look at where this proposal is coming from. It was written by animal liberation activists who think eating meat is the same as murder and want to impose their beliefs on the whole city. Food choices are personal decisions, and we shouldn't impose dietary beliefs on others through a ballot measure.
That's absolutely ridiculous because it's not as if the measure is talking about banning the sale of meat or banning animal products. In reality, it's not going to change what's at the grocery store. The only thing it might change is the price of lamb, which is already really expensive. Do you think meat is murder?
I mean, yes.
I think I do, but I feel like a lot of people miss the point. When you hear meat is murder, you think, oh, murder is a legal definition. Animals don't fit that legal definition, therefore meat is not murder. But what we're actually saying when we say meat is murder is that meat should be considered murder, even though it's currently not. And I think that's the point a lot of people miss.
Right. It's like what's the difference? Like a prescriptive definition versus descriptive?
I don't know.
Anyways, that's getting too over people's heads. So another thing that's interesting is that they're framing it as like the government is imposing something on people, but we're in a unique place where we can actually do direct legislation via ballot initiatives, and this is like a citizen-led initiative that we are voting on as a city. So if it passes, that means the majority of people are in favor. Like, it's not a top-down authoritarian measure. It's a democratic decision. So
that's a super important distinction. Yeah, it's not like the government saying, "Oh, you have to close down slaughterhouses."
Right.
Citizens wrote the law. Citizens got it on the ballot, and citizens are going to vote on it.
Banning slaughterhouses in Denver will not help any animals. Most people will keep eating meat whether or not this ban passes. It just moves our food supply farther away, and other slaughterhouses will ship the food to Denver regardless. This does not accomplish anything to address animal welfare.
Do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, I do. They don't specifically say this, but they're trying to frame it as like a NIMBY issue. So they're saying that we just don't want it here in our backyard, just push it out elsewhere. But that's not the goal. Like, we're not just trying to move slaughterhouses, we're trying to ban slaughter, and we have to start somewhere, which is the city of Denver. So
the other thing as to why the slaughterhouse probably won't move, and this comes from Jennifer Martin, who is involved in the opposition, and she was on a radio interview and she said that Superior Farms is very unlikely to build a slaughterhouse somewhere else because it's incredibly expensive. It wouldn't be financially worth it. And also the slaughterhouse equipment they're using was manufactured a long time ago and was much cheaper back in the day. Now that same equipment is so much more expensive. So it's very price prohibitive to build new slaughterhouses, and also hard to get the approval for slaughterhouses in many neighborhoods. So it's extremely unlikely that the slaughterhouse will just move somewhere else. That being said, the animals who would go to the slaughterhouse will probably go somewhere else, but the sheep herders are aware of this. When there's less of an ability for slaughter to happen, they're going to reduce their herds. They'll have over a year to reduce their herds. Sheep are on a 6-month life cycle. So ideally it will lead to fewer animals being bred just to be killed.
Which does help animals. Denver's slaughterhouse has been a part of our community fabric since 1964. It provides good-paying jobs to local workers, donates food to local food banks like Project Angel Heart, and works with local universities and 4-H clubs to support research and teaching the next generation of farmers and ranchers. It makes no sense to ban a 60-year-old Denver business that has been a contributing part of the community.
This is another tactic they're leaning heavily into, which is to frame themselves as this small, local Denver business. In reality, this is a national corporation. Their profit is $250 million a year. They're headquartered in California. They're not local to Denver. The CEO lives in Austin, Texas. There's nothing local about them. And at that slaughterhouse, lambs are shipped from anywhere west of Iowa. But they're really leaning into this local narrative because meat eaters love that.
Yeah, it's like dripping with propaganda. It's like, let's just review the words. Community fabric. The word community denotes like
they're like
positive
happily
feelings.
hanging out at the slaughterhouse together. Like there's not a huge opportunity cost to the slaughterhouse being there in the community where it is a food desert and they don't have community centers. There's an industrialized slaughterhouse that people aren't even allowed into. It's not like it's the glue of the community or something.
Right.
That's insane.
And then the word local also denotes like positive feelings. I mean, it is generally good to buy local, but that doesn't mean like local equals good.
But when it comes to food emissions, it doesn't really matter as much if it's local. Like you could ship bananas around the world 6 times, they'd still have a lower carbon footprint than beef. And then lamb is the second most damaging meat to the planet besides beef. So they're trying to get in on this like, oh, it's bad for the environment with the transportation, but in reality it's bad for the environment because it's lamb.
Yeah. Again, they're portraying themselves as like a charity.
Yeah.
Like we donate to.
I mean, I'm sure they do donate to stuff, but you know, whatever. Not all businesses who donate are good.
The word generation, I feel like that's another one that is like people just really feel connected to their ancestors. It's like this appeal to nature almost.
Yeah.
And then reiterating that it's a contributing part of the community and that it's a 60-year-old business. Like the fact that it's 60 years old is like
matters. But you know what's interesting is that
appeal to tradition.
In different contexts they've used 70-year-old. So which is it?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they should get their numbers right.
Yeah. This ban will harm the workers of Denver's Latino and Chicano community. Most of the workers at the Denver slaughterhouse are Latino, and they will all lose their jobs if this ban passes. And many of the restaurants and other food industry businesses that will be harmed by this ban are owned by first and second generation immigrants.
It's really interesting to see such a conservative company basing their messaging around the fact that Denver is mostly liberals, and they know that this is going to speak to liberals, right? Because, you know, they care about immigration rights and workers and whatnot.
As do we.
As do we, exactly. And that's why we support this ban, because slaughterhouse workers have some of the highest rates of PTSD, depression, substance abuse. We interviewed someone who used to work there. He said it was terrible. He said he started using marijuana and cocaine just to deal with the job. It doesn't help these people. He had a brother who worked in another slaughterhouse that has closed down, and it made him an alcoholic. Like, this is not helping people. Slaughterhouses are not helping people, and it's a huge opportunity cost to what could be in that neighborhood. I think the reason that they are in a predominantly Latino neighborhood is because they knew that white people would have too much power to put up with it. They would try to block it in their neighborhood, or they wouldn't accept it in their neighborhood.
Right.
Whereas communities without that power don't really have a choice.
Right. And these are the reason they're majority immigrant workers is because this is not desirable work. Like this is, they're desperate for money. And obviously we don't want them to be harmed by like job loss, which is why we have that provision to help them in a federal jobs program if this were to pass. So
yeah, and the other point on that is that slaughterhouses have between an 80 to 100% turnover every year. So the chances that most of them are going to be working there in a year, which is when this place would close, are very, very low. The people who stay are the people who are managers, who have power, and the people who stay are not the ones killing the lambs all day and the ones really hurting by this line of work.
This is obviously, I mean, we'll get to that later, but this is an environmental justice issue.
Yeah.
And they're trying to flip it and make us the bad guys that are anti-immigrant when we're the ones who are trying to protect the community of Globeville, which is like a neighborhood of Denver, from this incredibly polluting facility. Like,
yeah.
this is what harms the local immigrant community, not a ban on slaughter.
And we know from studies that when you put a slaughterhouse in a neighborhood, the violent crime tends to go up. We had that corroborated by the worker that we interviewed there. So it's not helping the community at all.
Yeah. Banning a local food producer is not sustainable. Many Denverites will keep eating meat no matter what, and banning our local slaughterhouse will just mean we have to ship in food from further away, increasing carbon emissions and making our food less sustainable. I mean, we kind of already touched on this.
I have more to say on this. First of all, the average American eats less than 2 pounds of lamb every year. This is not a significant source of calories for most people. It's really not going to affect the majority of consumers. They prefer chicken and cows and pigs. They're not reaching for lamb typically at grocery stores. So
that is very Eurocentric. That is racist.
Sheep shouldn't even be here. Like, it's ridiculous. But the other part of that is that just because these animals are slaughtered in Denver doesn't mean they were raised in Denver or anywhere close to Denver. They come from very far away. And the idea that it increases carbon emissions is pretty ridiculous because less than 1% of emissions from ruminant animals come from transportation. The vast majority come from the raising of the animals, the feed, the water, and the land use is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So moving away from using animals is great for the environment, and that's what this measure intends to do.
This is the same playbook that the fossil fuel industry uses with their propaganda campaign to convince people to support business as usual. Is like they flip it around and make it sound like, oh, windmills and solar are terrible for the environment. And it's like everything has an impact. Like, yes, plant agriculture has an environmental footprint. We're not denying that. Yeah. But it's just ridiculous. Like, it's just completely false.
It's so much lower than meat, especially lamb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, remember windmills kill birds?
No, no, I don't.
It's like, how many birds are killed by fucking oil leaks?
Yeah. We've seen those Dawn commercials.
This is the wrong approach to improving animal welfare in Colorado. Banning a single Denver business won't make things better. The best way to improve animal welfare is to work together with everyone involved in the food supply chain, so everyone maintains high standards for animal handling and care. A ban on one business is just the wrong approach.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God. So, first of all, they're trying to frame it as we're targeting this one specific business, when in reality, there just happens to be one slaughterhouse operating within city limits. So this measure would ban slaughterhouses in city limits, and it would prevent future slaughterhouses from opening. So it's not like we're just targeting Superior Farms because we don't like Superior Farms. It's we don't like slaughter.
Yeah.
And they're acting like it's just easier. It's a little bit easier for them to portray themselves as like
the victim.
Yeah.
And then as far as the best way to improve animal welfare is to work together with everyone involved in the food supply chain, that's clearly not the case because that hasn't happened. We've been trying, animal rights advocates have been trying for decades to improve the animal welfare food system, and it's just not working. You see the Humane League spending millions of dollars getting corporations to agree to better chicken commitments, and then the corporations just completely ignore them and business as usual. Or even the thing with Prop 12, how the pork industry spent, instead of changing their standards to be updated with the law, they spent 6 years fighting the law. They're still trying to fight the law, even though they lost at the Supreme Court. Food producers do not want things to change. They care about profit. They are making a lot of profit right now. Why would they want to change that? There's no reason for them to.
And just notice how vague this language is. The best way to improve animal welfare is to work together with everyone involved in the food supply chain. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like,
it literally means nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds nice, and it's what consumers want to hear.
To do what? Like, the laws already exist. Like, it's funny how they want to have it both ways. They want to say that, like, the industry is already humane and we already have these laws. But then on the flip side, they're like, oh, if you try to ban slaughterhouses, no, that's the wrong thing. We need to just work to like improve how they're doing. It's like they say this.
Yeah,
you can't have it both ways.
It's an admission of guilt there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is only one slaughterhouse in Denver. The company is employee-owned by the 160 people who work there. Out of the thousands of businesses in Denver, this measure unfairly targets a single employee-owned business to force it to shut down with a ballot measure. That's just wrong.
This is ridiculous because they're acting like all of those 160 employees are owners of the business. In reality, you only get those benefits when you've been there 5 or 10 years, and most people don't last that long in the first place.
Wow.
I would bet it's a much smaller proportion. We don't know the exact numbers, but it's far less than 160 employees who actually own part of the business. And it's dishonest for them to act like it's everyone.
And I mean, we already talked about the framing of like you're targeting one specific business, but what you mentioned before we started filming, what is this like PR company they've hired where they are trying to flip it around and make it seem like actually the progressive thing to do is to support this slaughterhouse because this is a pro-union, like pro-worker facility, and it's just a complete joke.
It's a complete joke. Yeah.
How much do you think they're paying this PR firm?
So far, they've paid them $147,000.
Oh my God. Did you say that earlier?
I did.
Okay. Just to reiterate.
It could go up. I am betting it'll go up.
Yeah.
That's just right now.
Wow. Well, at least, even if this doesn't pass, at least we like got them to.
Yeah.
We did hurt them financially already because they're having to shell out
$500,000.
all this fucking money.
Yeah. I mean, at some level, I feel not that we've already won, but that that makes me feel really good.
It does. Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend that I don't love costing the meat industry
Victory.
$500,000. That is amazing.
Yeah. Also, that's just wrong.
Right. Their whole website is like, this is unfair. This is wrong. Wrong approach. Unfair. We're the victims. They're fucking murdering baby lambs. Like, yeah, it's insane.
That's just wrong.
Yes, that is wrong.
This ban would harm the livelihoods of Colorado's small farmers and ranchers. Many farms and ranches are just getting by, and they are warning that this measure could put them out of business for good.
As much as I would love for all the farmers and ranchers to go out of business, I don't think this measure will have that effect, at least not that immediate of an effect. It will only affect the sheep farmers once again. We're not sure if any of them are going out of business or if they're going to reduce their herd. Mm-hmm. We're just not sure what the impact will be as of right now, but it's not as if this is their only option for making money. They can find other jobs, they can farm something else. Mm-hmm. Animal exploitation is wrong. Treating animals as objects and killing them when they're 6 months old is wrong. And just because some people might lose their jobs doesn't mean we shouldn't advance morally as a society.
Yeah, and again, same playbook that the fossil fuel industry uses. Jobs, though, is their biggest defense. And they act like, first of all, it's going to be a transition away from fossil fuels. Like, this stuff doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, it's going to be very gradual.
Right. So the idea that we're just, like, putting people out of work, it's like, we have to transition away from fossil fuels or we're going to destroy the fucking planet.
And animal ag.
So, jobs, though, versus the future of our
I don't
planet.
hear anyone complaining. And I don't hear anyone complaining about jobs when we're talking about newer technologies. Like,
I mean,
the internet.
They kind of do.
They do. Well, they didn't with, like, when cell phones came out, it wasn't like, oh no, what about Kodak?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
There are some things that become political and have that, and that is especially things with morality, but there are so many industries that die throughout the history of the world, and that just happens. That's business, that's the free market, which these people probably like. So a lot of these farmers are also getting government subsidies, so they're being kept afloat when they're not profitable anyway. I think that is wrong and unfair.
Yeah. Facts. It's not just one slaughterhouse that will feel the negative effects of this ban. It will have ripple effects throughout Denver's economy. Colorado State University studied the effects of this slaughterhouse and found that it would cost Denver's economy up to $861 million and impact as many as 2,700 jobs. You have a lot to say about this.
I have a lot to say about this because this study was absolutely ridiculous. They didn't show where they got these numbers. They put multipliers on them that they couldn't back up. 2,700 jobs is insane. They were counting truck drivers, people who own restaurants. Truck drivers are still going to have jobs. They're going to go to different slaughterhouses or deliver different goods. Closing this one slaughterhouse is going to affect 160 people, which is bad. We've already talked about how we can get them new jobs that are less damaging to their psyches. As far as the 861 million figure, so they actually did 3 scenarios. 861 million is the absolute worst case scenario that is unlikely to happen, but even if it did, that's only 1.6% of Colorado's GDP. The candy industry is twice as big. The parking garage industry is bigger. So it's not a significant source of income for residents, even in the worst case scenario. But the whole study was completely ridiculous.
So those are all of the arguments for the opposition. And then the rest of the survey, they took points from our website and made the case for the ban, and then asked if you would vote yes or no. They're just trying to gauge public opinion. So we thought we'd just talk just a little bit about how the campaign is going. Yeah, you have any thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts about how the campaign is going. So how I feel about it changes on a semi-daily basis. Sometimes I feel as if we got this, we're going to win. Other days I just feel like there's probably a very small chance that we are going to win, but even if we lose, that it's still a win for quite a few reasons. But as far as the campaign right now, there are things that we've done really well. Our social media seems to be pretty good. We've recruited more volunteers through that. We're targeting swing voters next. We have different phases in our campaign that we're working on. We have made a bunch of ads that we're going to start running. I'm feeling pretty confident about those. And we've also made a lot of mistakes, but this is why this is the pilot campaign. One of the big mistakes we made was that we didn't put out an economic report before CSU did. Now we know that will be a thing in every future campaign, so we will make sure to put out a report before the opposition does. That also happened in Sonoma County, and they weren't prepared for it. There were a couple other things. They have been a lot better at targeting the local, policymakers, the city council. We haven't done that really at all. Mm-hmm. Some people told us that we shouldn't bother, but we should have made like a 1 to 2 page fact sheet about why we support the ban and what this ban would do, and given it out to city council members. But we didn't do that, and Superior Farms did.
Oh no.
So that's not great. And
you
as a whole,
by failing,
you learn by failing, and that's like one of the big reasons we're doing this campaign, is to learn how far we can push the bounds of public opinion, and how to run better campaigns in the future. And the other reason that we could probably lose is just the amount of money that they have.
This is all like taking me back to when I worked for Greenpeace, and I mean, Greenpeace wasn't specifically working on this ballot initiative, but a lot of my coworkers were. And it was the fracking ban, and sadly it didn't pass.
How much did it?
And I'm wondering if it's the same PR company that worked for.
I would bet it is.
Yeah. I don't remember specifics at all, but
okay.
It does make me a little sad, because I'm like, if we can't pass a fracking ban, like a slaughterhouse ban, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. There was a Reddit thread that's going to be the other video in this series that made me a lot less confident about the campaign.
Yeah.
Because when we talk to people in person, they're all about it. They love the idea. Yeah. They're like, yes, I want to close slaughterhouses most of the time.
Ethan was saying, my husband was saying that he goes on Reddit a lot, and he finds that Reddit is like a pretty anti-vegan community. Like there are a lot more anti-vegans on Reddit than there are in the general population. So it might be like a skewed perception of where people stand. So that was somewhat comforting, because you're right, when we do talk to people in person, we get a lot different. And this is at public parks, so it's not like we're targeting like
only liberals hang out in public parks.
Yeah, so I don't know. But
we'll just have to wait and see. That's the only thing really that we can do is see how this turns out and then adapt in the future based on what worked and what didn't.
Yeah. Well, next we're going to react to a post. So the Colorado Sun, which is a local newspaper, put out an article about our campaign, and they posted it to Reddit, and we're going to react to some of the comments. So hop on over to Natalie's channel for that one.
All right.
All right.
Bye.